the mission today is to film, edit, and upload the video all in one day, which honestly might require a miracle because I just got my hands on this phone, so apologies in advance if I seem a bit stressed. This is the brand new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. In many ways, the bar setter of smartphones given the time of year Samsung rolls it out, and I've had it for about 24 hours, so let's talk about it. So taking this out of the box, it's going to be quite a familiar experience if you've purchased a relatively recent Galaxy Ultra device in the past, particularly last year's model. One immediate difference to help make the S23 variant stand out is this new green colorway. The matte finish gives it a more subtle look, but it still comes off really premium, and I love that it's a darker shade of green. Overall, it gives the phone a stealthier, sleeker aesthetic. Aside from that, from a design and looks perspective, the S23 Ultra is eerily similar to last year's model as it maintains the formal adoption of the Galaxy Notes design blueprint. So you get the signature boxy sharp corners and this unapologetically large frame, providing you with a massive 6.8-inch display that is basically all screen minus the very small cutout for the front-facing camera, as well as the 4 cameras on the rear in this now familiar free-floating design. And of course, this being a Note, Galaxy Ultra, you get the integrated S Pen in the bottom of the frame, so again, very familiar. Now, one subtle difference with the form factor this go around is the way the frame is put together. It's still made out of aluminum and is still very well integrated into the display for that seamless pairing, but the sides are noticeably less curved than before, which makes it more comfortable to hold and operate in the hand. Moreover, it makes the display not be as curved as it was in the past. In fact, Samsung now calls the display a dynamic AMOLED Infinity O QHD Edge screen display, as it doesn't have nearly as dramatic of a curve as some of the older models, and so far I really like that. Curved displays are kind of like the bell-bottoms of early smartphone design. They were no doubt popular a few years back, and Samsung really led the charge there, but the trend really has started to fade, and I'm glad that the S23 Ultra has a flatter profile on the screen. It just makes the phone look a lot more refined and polished, and it really does make for a better user experience as you have less accidental touches on the display and less distortion when viewing content. Now, as far as specs and performance goes, as to be expected with Samsung, it's pretty outstanding. It comes in at a resolution of 1440 by 3088, making for around 500 pixels per inch, and it looks incredible. Watching videos and playing games has always been a joy on the Ultra devices, and the S23 Ultra is no exception. Colors are bright and saturated, and watching HDR content with this phone is so nice, it really grabs and holds your attention as the quality here is top notch. You also get the very smooth 120Hz variable refresh rate that Samsung has dialed in really well. To me, it's really the icing on the cake when it comes to premium user experience, as navigating around the UI is silky smooth without any noticeable issues with throttling. Now, pro tip, you're going to want to set the display to its highest resolution in the settings if you want to enjoy the S23 Ultra for all it has to offer, but keep in mind that it may impact your battery life as it will take more power to run the display at its highest specs. Speaking of battery life, let's talk about performance, and full transparency, it's only been 24 hours, so take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. It's a bit too early to definitively draw any major conclusions, as I do need more time to do some more serious testing. Now, that said, an important thing to take note of is the processor that's powering this beastly device, and that's the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chip. It's a flagship chip made by Qualcomm, but fun fact, the processor has some customization specifically for the Galaxy lineup. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much the standard chip has been modified exclusively for Samsung, but what's oftentimes associated with more quote-unquote in-house components is better performance and better efficiency. And so far, performance from a user experience standpoint seems to be solid as to be expected. There's virtually no lag or jitters navigating around one UI, and more spec-intensive activities like using the in-display fingerprint reader or playing spec-demanding games is pretty much a breeze. You also almost get no latency when using the S Pen. It's ultra responsive and really makes this a legitimate useful tool as opposed to some cheap gimmick. Now, none of these things I would consider abnormal, as the Ultra lineup has a reputation for really good performance, but word on the street is there is one really specific thing to look out for with the S23 Ultra, and that's its battery life. Now, previous iterations have done well in this area as well, and as far as battery hardware, you still get a pretty beefy 5000 mAh battery like last year, but apparently with the optimization of the new processor, the S23 Ultra is said to have some significant gains when it comes to battery life. And honestly, that's pretty exciting because it was a strong performer last year, so I'm eager to see what improvements Samsung has made, especially because battery life on phones is just becoming more and more important by the day. Now, people who had early hands-on with the S23 Ultra have been comparing it to the legendary battery status of the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is like the gold standard at this point. And again, I'm super excited for that because battery life on my iPhone 14 Pro Max, which I've been using, is just not good. I'm just gonna say it. So I'm hopeful that Samsung really stepped it up here because it would be a welcome change of pace. And last, let's talk about my first impressions with the S23 Ultra's camera system, and so far, I'm gonna just say it, it's pretty dang good. Samsung has always been top 5 in my opinion when it comes to overall camera quality, and it's taking no backseat this year as it made some noteworthy upgrades to its hardware. First and most attention-grabbing, the main camera now boasts a pretty ridiculous 200 megapixel sensor. That's 2 times as many as the original heavily spec'd 100 megapixel sensor from last year. And so far, the snaps coming from this camera look great with a ton of detail, a dash of extra contrast for a more stylized look, and I'm happy to see that Samsung continues to go down this path of making its computational photography settings lead to more natural, less artificial looking photos. You also get updated sensors for the ultra-wide, 3x and 10x telephoto zoom cameras, and so far with the limited testing I've been able to do, they all perform really well. There's good color matching between all different sensors, and generally they're just a lot more detailed and a lot more sharp than last year. Now the front-facing camera on paper could look like a downgrade as it went down from 40 megapixels to 12, but I don't think that's the case as the selfies coming out of the S23 Ultra look pretty fantastic. And when it comes to video, the S23 Ultra comes with new and improved stabilization, which is great for handheld shooting, but by far my favorite update here has to be with the 8K video option. You no longer are heavily cropped in like before, and the footage, at least for the here and now, seems noticeably sharper. So all to say, the Galaxy S23 Ultra 24 hours later is a good blend of super familiar but also really meaningfully different. The form factor and the day-to-day experience is no doubt similar to using last year's model, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing so far with the improved camera performance, and I'm eager to see if the battery life on this phone lives up to the hype. Now I'm going to be doing a lot more thorough testing with all the S23s, so make sure that you're subscribed to the channel so you can catch the way more thorough review coming very soon, but let me know what you guys think about the S23 Ultra. Is it too familiar of a device? Or is it something you're excited to get your hands on? Curious to get your thoughts, let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments down below. Now in case you do want to do some benchmarking between the S23 Ultra and last year's model, check out these reviews here for a good refresher.